In a move that sent shockwaves through Washington, President Joe Biden issued a sweeping preemptive pardon to his family members on his last day in office. The pardon, announced as Donald Trump took the oath of office for a second term, covered any potential federal crimes committed by Biden's son Hunter, brother James, sister Valerie, and their spouses. This unprecedented act immediately ignited a firestorm of controversy, with critics accusing Biden of abusing his power to shield his family from justice. The pardons are particularly contentious given the cloud of suspicion that has hung over Hunter Biden's business dealings for years. Republicans, fueled by Trump's relentless attacks, have accused Hunter of using his father's position for personal enrichment, particularly during his time on the board of Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. While no charges have been filed, the allegations have dogged the Biden family and cast a long shadow over the president's legacy. Defenders of the pardons argue that they were necessary to protect the Biden family from politically motivated prosecutions. They point to Trump's repeated vows to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the Bidens, suggesting that the former president was intent on using the justice system as a weapon against his political opponents. In this view, Biden's actions were a defensive maneuver, a way to prevent his family from being dragged through the mud by a vindictive administration. The decision to issue preemptive pardons has thrust the issue of presidential power back into the spotlight. Critics argue that Biden's actions set a dangerous precedent, normalizing the idea that presidents are above the law and can use their pardon power to protect themselves and their families from accountability. Donald Trump's shadow looms large over the controversy surrounding Biden's preemptive pardons. Throughout his first term and during the 2024 campaign, Trump repeatedly vowed to unleash the Justice Department on the Biden family, promising to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate their alleged wrongdoings. He held rallies where chants of "lock them up," directed at the Bidens, became a regular feature, echoing the fervor of his attacks against Hillary Clinton in 2016. Trump's allies in Congress, particularly those in the House of Representatives, were equally relentless in their pursuit of the Bidens. They launched a series of investigations into Hunter Biden's business dealings, holding highly publicized hearings that often devolved into partisan mudslinging. These investigations, while yielding no concrete evidence of criminal wrongdoing, kept the allegations against the Bidens in the headlines and fueled suspicion among Trump's base. For Trump and his supporters, the preemptive pardons are seen as a tacit admission of guilt. They argue that Biden would not have taken such drastic measures unless he believed his family had something to hide. The timing of the pardons, announced as Trump returned to power, only served to bolster this narrative, feeding the perception that Biden was acting out of fear of what a second Trump administration might uncover. However, critics of Trump view his attacks on the Bidens as nothing more than a cynical attempt to deflect attention from his own legal troubles and to discredit his political opponents. They argue that Trump's vow to appoint a special prosecutor was never about seeking justice, but was instead a blatant attempt to weaponize the justice system for his own personal gain. The reaction to Biden's preemptive pardons has fallen predictably along partisan lines. Democrats have largely defended the move, arguing that it was a necessary step to protect the Biden family from politically motivated prosecutions by the Trump administration. They point to the relentless attacks on the Bidens by Trump and his allies, as well as the former president's vows to appoint a special prosecutor, as evidence that the justice system was being used as a political weapon. Leading Democrats have rallied around Biden, framing his actions as a courageous defense of his family against an onslaught of baseless accusations. They argue that the pardons were not an admission of guilt, but rather a recognition that the Bidens would never receive a fair hearing under a Trump administration. Some have even gone so far as to praise Biden for putting family first, arguing that any father would do the same to protect their children from unfair attacks. Republicans, on the other hand, have been united in their condemnation of the pardons, characterizing them as a blatant abuse of power and an affront to the rule of law. They argue that Biden's actions set a dangerous precedent, normalizing the idea that presidents are above the law and can use their pardon power to shield themselves and their allies from accountability. The timing of the pardons, announced as Trump returned to power, has only added fuel to the fire, leading many Republicans to accuse Biden of attempting to obstruct justice. The partisan divide over the pardons reflects the deep polarization that continues to grip American politics. The issue has become yet another battleground in the ongoing culture war, with each side retreating to their respective corners and lobbing accusations of hypocrisy and bad faith. The controversy surrounding Biden's preemptive pardons has reignited the debate over the scope and limits of presidential power. While the Constitution grants the president broad authority to issue pardons, the question of whether this power can be used preemptively to protect individuals from potential future prosecutions remains a matter of legal and ethical debate. Proponents of a broad interpretation of the pardon power argue that the Constitution places no explicit restrictions on its use. They contend that the framers, having witnessed the abuses of unchecked prosecutorial power in England, intentionally granted the president this sweeping authority as a safeguard against tyranny. In this view, the president's ability to issue preemptive pardons is an essential check on the power of the judiciary and a vital tool for ensuring justice. However, critics of this expansive view argue that it grants the president far too much power and undermines the principle of equal justice under the law. They contend that preemptive pardons create a two-tiered justice system, one for the president and his allies, and another for everyone else. They argue that such pardons, by shielding individuals from accountability, erode public trust in the legal system and create the perception that the wealthy and powerful are above the law. The debate over the preemptive pardon power is ultimately a question of balance, balancing the need for a strong executive with the imperative of safeguarding against abuse. It is a debate that is likely to continue long after Biden has left office, as future presidents grapple with the legacy of his controversial decision.